everyone. Welcome back to the Simple English Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa, and today we have a really interesting topic that I'm sure many of you can relate to: peer pressure. You know that feeling when your friends or people around you encourage you to do something, whether you want to or not. It happens to all of us, at school, at work, or even just hanging out with friends. But is it always bad? Let's talk about it. And today I'm joined by Richard, a guy who knows a lot about this topic. Richard, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thanks, Lisa. I'm doing great, excited to be here. Peer pressure is such a big part of life, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners will have some stories to share by the end of the episode.
That's right. We've all felt it in some way, whether it's a small push to try something new or something bigger that makes us feel uncomfortable. So let's dive right into it, shall we? Don't forget to check out the free PDF file in the comment section below to get the full transcript and vocabulary for this episode. All right, Richard, let's start with the basics. What exactly is peer pressure?
Great question, Lisa. Peer pressure is when someone feels like they have to do something because their friends or people around them are doing it, or because they want to fit in. It's like you feel this pressure to act or think in a certain way just to be accepted. And it can happen at any age, but it's most common when we're younger, like in school, when we're trying to find our place in a group.
Right, and I think a lot of people think peer pressure only happens with big, risky decisions, like drinking or doing something dangerous. But it can happen with small things too, right?
Exactly. Peer pressure doesn't always have to be extreme. It could be something as simple as wearing a certain brand of clothes because everyone else is, or even listening to a type of music just to fit in. It's about wanting to be part of the group. For example, let's say you're in a group of friends who all like a certain TV show. Even though you're not interested, you might feel the pressure to watch it just so you can talk about it with them.
Yeah, I've definitely been in that situation. It's like you don't want to feel left out, but at the same time, you're not really interested in what everyone else is doing. So what do you think, Richard? Why do we feel this pressure to fit in?
Well, it's human nature, really. We all want to be accepted and part of a group. Social acceptance is a big deal, especially when we're younger. Our brains are wired to seek connection, and sometimes we'll do things we wouldn't normally do just to avoid being isolated. It's all about the need for belonging.
That makes sense. So what do you think are some of the dangers of giving in to peer pressure?
One of the biggest dangers is that you can lose your sense of self. When you're constantly trying to please others or fit into a certain mold, you might forget what really matters to you. It can also lead to bad habits or risky behavior, like using substances or making decisions you regret later.
Totally. I think sometimes people feel like they have no choice but to follow the crowd, even when it's not right for them. Have you ever experienced peer pressure yourself, Richard?
Definitely. I think everyone has, at some point. One example I can think of is when I was in high school. A group of friends wanted to go out and party on the weekend. I didn't really feel like it, but I went along because I didn't want to be left out. It wasn't the best decision, and I ended up feeling uncomfortable the whole time.
That's a perfect example. It's not always about big decisions. It could be as simple as not speaking up when you don't agree with something. So, Richard, how can someone stand up to peer pressure?
Well, the first thing is to be confident in your own choices. If you're sure about what you want, it's easier to say no. And it's important to surround yourself with people who respect your decisions, not people who push you into things you don't want to do. Sometimes it's also about practicing what you'll say when someone pressures you. A simple, "No, I'm good," or "That's not my thing," can be powerful.
I love that. It's all about being true to yourself, and you don't have to do everything just to please others. In fact, that's one of the best ways to gain respect from people, by being confident in your own choices. All right, time for a fun fact. Did you know that studies show people are more likely to say yes to peer pressure when they're with others, but when they're alone, they're much more likely to stick to their own decisions? It's true. Our brains react differently when we're in groups. That's why it's so important to be strong in our own convictions and to think about what we really want before we follow the crowd.
That's really interesting, Lisa. So it's not just about being brave, but also about understanding how our brain works in social situations.
Exactly. It's all connected. So, Richard, any final thoughts on peer pressure?
Yeah, I think the key takeaway here is that peer pressure is something everyone experiences, but it doesn't have to control your life. The more you learn to trust yourself, the easier it is to handle those situations. And remember, saying no doesn't make you a bad person. It just means you're staying true to who you are.
Such great advice, Richard. I think this is something we all need to hear more often. Thanks so much for joining me today and sharing your insights.
Thanks for having me, Lisa. It was a pleasure.
And thank you to everyone listening. Remember, peer pressure is something we all deal with, but it's okay to stand your ground. You are the best judge of what's right for you. Until next time, stay confident and take care. Okay, everyone, it's time to learn some important vocabulary related to the topic. The first word of today is peer. It means a person who is equal to another in abilities, qualifications, age, or social status. Example: it's important to choose friends who have a positive influence on you. Next word is pressure. It means the act of applying force or influence to persuade someone to do something. Example: she felt a lot of pressure from her friends to skip school, but she knew it wasn't the right decision. Next word is influence. It means the capacity to have an effect on the character, behavior, or development of someone or something. Example: her older brother had a big influence on her, especially when it came to choosing friends. Next word is obligation. It means a duty or responsibility to do something. Example: sometimes peer pressure creates an obligation to fit in, even if it doesn't feel right. Next word is challenge. It means a task or situation that tests someone's abilities or resources. Example: turning down a friend's invitation can feel like a huge challenge, especially if everyone else is going. Next word is rejection. It means the act of dismissing or refusing someone or something. Example: he feared the rejection of his friends if he didn't agree to their plan. Next word is resist. It means to oppose or withstand something, especially peer pressure. Example: it's important to learn how to resist peer pressure and make decisions based on your own values. Next word is compromise. It means an agreement or settlement of a dispute where both sides make concessions. Example: sometimes peer pressure can lead to a compromise. The last word is self-esteem. It means confidence in one's own worth or abilities. Example: strong self-esteem helps people resist peer pressure and make decisions that align with their personal values. Thank you so much for listening to the Simple English Podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned something new. Don't forget to give us a like, subscribe, and share it to your friend. Please leave us a comment below on what you think about the topic. We'd love to hear from you. And bye for now.